The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every little sound feel loud in your heart. The small church stood at the edge of a narrow street in Iran, hidden between old houses with cracked walls. Inside the church, warm light from candles danced on the walls, and soft voices rose into the air like little birds singing. People of all ages sat together, men, women, children, holding hands, praying, and whispering songs that made the room feel safe, like a big gentle hug. Outside, the wind pushed dust across the road. It carried the smell of smoke from far away, but inside the church, no one imagined danger. They only felt peace. The pastor, an older man with kind eyes, smiled as he spoke about hope, courage, and how light always wins over darkness. His voice was gentle, but it reached every heart like a warm flame glowing in cold air. Little Miriam sat next to her mother. She held her tiny Bible close to her chest. She didn't really understand all the big words the grown-ups used, but she understood one thing very well: Jesus loved them, and he was near. That thought made her feel brave, even when she didn't know why she needed to be brave. But outside, someone watched. Shadows moved quietly. A few angry men, covered in black scarves, stood together whispering fast, harsh words. Their eyes were cold like winter stones. They didn't like the church. They didn't like that people inside prayed differently. Their hearts were full of fear, and fear made them do dark things. One of them held a small bottle filled with liquid. Another held a lighter. Their hands shook, not from kindness, but from a hard mix of anger and confusion. Inside, people continued praying. None of them knew that danger crept closer with each step outside. Then, suddenly, Miriam felt something strange, like a soft whisper brushing her ears even though no one was near. She lifted her head. "Mama," she said quietly, "I feel something, like someone is telling me to pray harder." Her mother looked down at her with gentle surprise but nodded. "Then pray, my child." Miriam closed her eyes. Outside, one of the men struck the lighter. The tiny flame flickered, glowing like a wicked smile. He touched it to a piece of cloth wrapped around the bottle. Fire caught quickly. The orange light shone on their faces as they hurled the burning bottle toward the church wall. It hit with a loud crash. Inside, everyone jumped. Gasps filled the room. The pastor stopped mid-sentence. Smoke curled into the air. A flame rose along the side of the building like a hungry beast waking from sleep. Children cried. Women shouted. The men rushed to the windows to see what had happened. Fear spread like quick wind. But suddenly, something impossible happened. The flames outside stopped moving. They froze in place, trembling like they were afraid. Then, as if pushed by a giant invisible hand, the fire bent backward, away from the church. It hissed and cracked but would not come closer. People stared with wide eyes. Even the pastor stepped back, his breath caught in his throat. Then came a gentle glow inside the church, brighter than the candles, softer than the moon. It wrapped around the people like warm arms. Miriam opened her eyes and whispered, "Jesus is here." And everyone felt it. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. They only watched in awe as the fire outside began to weaken, shrink, and finally die out completely, like a small light being blown away by love itself. The danger had come, but something greater had stepped in. And the story was only beginning. The church stayed quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that feels like the whole world is holding its breath. Everyone looked at one another with trembling eyes. The smoke outside had faded, but their fear had not. Mothers held their children close. Men stood frozen, unsure whether to run or stay. Even the pastor's hands shook a little as he tried to speak. But before he could say a word, a soft wind moved through the room, even though the windows were closed. It brushed against their faces like a gentle hand wiping away tears. The candles that had been trembling from fear suddenly stood steady again, their flames calm and strong. The people slowly felt their hearts calm too, as if someone was whispering, "You are safe. Do not be afraid." Miriam was the first to move. She stood up on shaky feet and walked toward the pastor. Her mother tried to pull her back, but Miriam whispered, "Mama, I'm okay." Her voice sounded small, but brave. The pastor knelt beside her. "What did you feel, little one?" he asked softly. She looked up at him with wide eyes. "Like Jesus was holding the fire back," she said. "Like he made it stop. I saw light there. Not with my eyes, but in my heart. A murmur spread across the room. Some people cried quietly. Others covered their mouths, overwhelmed by the strange peace filling the air. But outside, the danger was not gone. The same men who had thrown the burning bottle were still hiding in the shadows. They stared at the church wall, expecting flames to rise high, expecting the building to burn quickly. But nothing burned. Not the wood, not the windows, not even the cloth the fire touched. Why isn't it burning? One of them whispered, fear slipping into his voice. Another man stepped back, his eyes wide. I don't understand. I saw the fire touch it. I saw it catch. But something invisible, something they could not control or fight, stood between them and the church. They tried to move closer, but the air felt heavy, like a wall made of light was blocking their way. One of the men reached forward and suddenly jerked his hand back as if he had touched something too bright to bear. Let's go, one of them muttered urgently. Something is not right here. Inside the church, more people gathered toward the center, afraid to stay near the walls. Babies cried softly in their mother's arms. An old man, leaning on a small stick, whispered, I have lived many years, but never have I seen God show his power like this. The pastor raised his hands gently. Everyone, breathe. The danger is outside, but we are not alone. Let us pray. Not in fear, but in trust. They all bowed their heads. But something began happening while they prayed. Something powerful, silent, and mysterious. The sound of footsteps approached the church entrance. Slow, heavy, uncertain. People tensed. Children clung to their parents. A woman whispered, are they coming inside? Miriam grabbed her mother's hand tightly. But the door did not break open. Instead, a soft knock came. One quiet tap, then another, then one more. The pastor motioned for everyone to stay calm. He walked slowly toward the door, each step careful, as if the air itself was listening. When he reached the door, he paused, whispered a short prayer, and then opened it just a little, enough to see who stood outside. It was one of the men who had thrown the fire. But now, he wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't holding anything dangerous. He stood trembling like a child scared of the dark. His eyes were filled not with hatred, but with shock. Please, he whispered, his voice barely holding together. What happened here? I saw the fire. I saw it burning. But the fire refused to touch you. His voice cracked. Who kept it away? The pastor didn't answer immediately. He watched the man carefully, making sure there was no trick. But the man looked broken, scared, and confused. Tears stood in his eyes, glimmering in the faint street light. Please, the man said. Again, more desperate. Tell me, who is protecting you? The pastor gently opened the door wider. Inside the church, the people watched in silence. Finally, the pastor spoke softly, his voice warm like the glow of a candle. The one who protects us is Jesus. The man's breath caught, his shoulders dropped, and for a moment, he couldn't speak at all. Something inside him shook, like the ground under his feet had moved. Behind him, the wind blew gently, cooling the night. And in that moment, it seemed as if the whole world had gone quiet again, waiting, watching, wondering what would happen next. The night was not over. The danger was not finished. And the miracle was only beginning to unfold. The man at the door stood shaking, as if the night air had turned into ice around him. His scarf had slipped from his face, revealing eyes that looked tired, eyes that had seen too much anger and not enough kindness. For a long moment he said nothing, and the church stayed completely silent. Even the candles seemed to hold their breath. The pastor kept the door open just enough for the light from inside to touch the man's face. It was a soft, warm light, nothing bright, nothing dramatic, yet the man stepped back slightly as if he felt something he could not explain. Come inside, the pastor said gently. If you come in peace, you are welcome. The man looked unsure. His hands were still trembling. I don't know if I should, he whispered. I don't deserve to enter this place. The pastor's voice was calm. If fear brought you here, then let peace bring you in. Slowly, hesitantly, the man stepped inside. The people moved slightly apart, not in rejection, but in caution, unsure if more danger was coming. The man glanced around the room. His breath shook. He looked like someone who had climbed a high mountain and suddenly realized he had no more strength left. Miriam, The small girl who had felt the strange whisper earlier, watched him closely. She didn't feel fear this time. She felt something else. Something soft, like compassion. She tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, "I think he's sorry." Her mother didn't answer right away, but she squeezed Miriam's hand softly, as if agreeing quietly. The man lowered his head. "I came with others, but they ran. They saw something outside, something they could not understand. The fire, it stopped moving, as if the air pushed it away. And then, his voice broke. I felt something, like someone telling me to stop what I was doing." Someone in the church whispered, "A miracle." The man nodded slowly. Maybe it was something more. I don't know." He swallowed hard. "But I need to know, why? Why would your Jesus protect you? Why show mercy, even to people like me?" The pastor's eyes softened. He motioned for the man to sit on a bench near the front. The man hesitated, but then, with weak legs, he walked forward and sat down. People watched him closely but quietly. The pastor sat beside him. "Jesus does not protect us because we are perfect," he said softly. "He protects because he loves, even those who do not know him yet." The man covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook, not with anger, but with something deeper. Something like regret. For a moment, the entire church felt the weight of his struggle, the battle happening inside his heart. The people didn't know what he had lived through, what pain he carried, or who had taught him to fear those who believed differently. But they could all see that something inside him was breaking, and maybe healing. Outside, the street stayed quiet, but not empty. Footsteps echoed softly in the distance. More people were gathering. Some were neighbors who had seen the fire. Others were curious watchers, and some were the other men who had run away earlier. They stood at a distance now, whispering, confused, unsure if they should come closer or disappear into the night. Inside, the pastor continued speaking. "Tell me your name." The man lowered his hands slowly. "My name is Rami," he whispered. Miriam smiled a little. "Hello, Rami," she said softly. Rami looked at her with surprise. He didn't expect kindness from a child he had almost harmed. "I didn't want to." He stopped himself, his voice cracking. I thought I was doing something right. I was told that you were enemies. I was told that this place was dangerous. I didn't know you were just people. Families, children." Tears gathered in his eyes. "I didn't know there was light here." The pastor nodded gently. "Fear makes us blind, Rami. But love opens our eyes." From the back of the church, an elderly woman stepped forward with slow, careful steps. She held a small cup of water in her hand. She stopped in front of Rami and offered it to him. He stared at her in disbelief. "This is for me," she nodded. "You look tired. Drink." Rami hesitated. Then he took the cup with shaking hands and drank slowly. The simple act, water given by someone he had meant to harm, broke something deep in him. Tears fell freely now, dripping onto his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry." Miriam walked closer and stood beside the pastor. "Jesus protected us," she said quietly, "because he wants to protect you too." Rami lifted his head, stunned by the child's gentle words. Before anyone could speak again, a loud thud echoed outside. People jumped. The pastor turned toward the door. The sound came again. One step, then another, heavy, slow, tense. The other men who had run away were returning. Some of the church members gasped. Fear rushed through the room again. Would they try to finish what they started? Would they come with more anger? Would the danger rise once more? Rami stood up quickly. "Please," he said, voice urgent, "let me talk to them. They will not listen to you, but maybe they will listen to me." The pastor hesitated. Rami looked him in the eyes. "I will not harm you. I give you my word. Please, let me try." Miriam tugged the pastor's sleeve. "Let him go," she whispered. The pastor nodded slowly. Rami took a deep breath, wiped his face, and walked toward the door. The room held its breath. He stepped outside, and the night waited to see what would happen next. Rami stepped into the night, and the cool air wrapped around him like a quiet warning. The street was darker now. The moon hid behind thin clouds, and the shadows on the ground looked longer than before. His heart beat fast, so fast he felt it in his throat, but he knew he had to stand firm. Behind him, the church glowed softly, like a small island of peace in a dark sea. Inside, the people prayed silently, eyes fixed on the door. Ahead of him stood the other men, 3 figures, stiff as stone, watching him with confused, fearful eyes. They had not expected him to come out. They had not expected him to return at all. Rami raised his hands slowly to show he had nothing in them. "It's me," he said softly, his voice shaking but controlled. "I came to talk." The men looked at one another. One of them stepped forward, his face tense. He whispered sharply, "Rami, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You went inside. They could have stopped you, hurt you, captured you." Rami shook his head. "They didn't hurt me," he said. "They welcomed me." The men stared at him, stunned. "Why?" one asked, disbelief filling his voice. Rami took a breath. "Because they are not who we were told they are." The leader of the group, a tall man named Farhad, narrowed his eyes. "Did they trick you? Did they scare you?" Rami stepped closer, his voice stronger now. "No, something happened tonight. Something none of us can understand. When we threw the fire," his voice cracked. "It didn't burn them. It didn't even spread. It stopped. Like something invisible pushed it away." The men shifted nervously. One of them rubbed his arms as if suddenly cold. "We all saw it," he whispered. "Fire doesn't move like that." Farhad frowned deeply. "Maybe the bottle didn't break properly." "It broke," Rami interrupted. "I saw it. You saw it. And I heard something. I felt something. I felt like someone was telling me to stop." The men looked shaken. They had seen the same thing, but none of them had dared speak it. Farhad's voice turned low. "Rami, what happened inside?" Rami swallowed, then spoke with a softness that surprised even him. "Peace. There was peace inside, not fear, not anger. Peace like I've never felt. And light, not from lamps or candles, but inside my heart." The men looked at him, confusion turning slowly into something else, uncertainty mixed with curiosity. Back inside the church, the people watched through the small window. Miriam pressed her hands together tightly. "Jesus, help him," she whispered. Outside, Farhad stepped closer to Rami, his face only inches away. "Tell me the truth," he whispered. "Are you changing sides? Are you joining them?" Rami did not answer right away. He lifted his eyes to the sky, breathing deeply. "I'm not choosing sides," he said slowly. "I'm choosing truth. And what I saw tonight, what I felt, it was real." Farhad clenched his fists. "You think their God did that? You think their Jesus stopped the fire?" Rami looked him in the eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "I do." Farhad stepped back like someone had pushed him. His face twisted with shock. The other 2 men exchanged frightened glances. "Rami," one of them whispered, "if what you say is true, then why us? Why tonight?" Rami felt the answer rise inside him, gentle but sure. "Maybe because we needed to see, really see, that hate cannot win." The men stared at him, their hearts wrestling with fear and confusion. Then something unexpected happened. A soft glow, faint, gentle, appeared near the church wall. It wasn't fire. It wasn't a lamp. It looked like a warm light floating in the air for just a heartbeat. All 4 men turned to look at it. The glow lasted only a moment, but it was enough to freeze them where they stood. Farhad exhaled sharply. "What was that?" Rami whispered. "A sign." Inside the church, Miriam gasped softly. She had seen it too through the window. "Mama, I saw the light again." Her mother hugged her close. "God is working," she whispered. Outside, the men backed away slightly, fear in their eyes, but not the angry kind of fear. The kind of fear that comes when something bigger than human strength touches your world. Farhad finally whispered, "Rami, what do we do now?" Rami turned toward the church. "Come with me," he said quietly. "No one will hurt you. No one will reject you. Just come and see." The men hesitated. Farhad shook his head slowly. "We can't. People will say." "Tonight," Rami interrupted gently, "is not about what people say. It's about truth." The men looked at one another. Something inside them struggled. Fear fighting curiosity, darkness battling the first spark of light. Finally, one of them whispered, "I will come." Another nodded shakily. Farhad stood frozen. Rami stepped closer. Farhad, he said softly, you saw the fire stop. You saw the light. Don't run from something that might save you. Farhad's lips trembled. He shut his eyes tightly. I'm afraid. Rami touched his shoulder lightly. I was afraid too. But peace waits for us inside. Farhad's breath shook. Then, slowly, he nodded. Together, the four men walked toward the church. Inside, hearts pounded. The pastor stepped forward. Miriam watched, eyes wide with hope. The door opened, and four men who came to destroy the church now entered it seeking truth. The night shifted. Something holy filled the air, and the miracle was far from over. When Farhad and the other men stepped inside the church, the room fell into a deep silence. Every person inside, old, young, tired, afraid, watched as the four strangers walked slowly down the aisle. The candles flickered gently, as if welcoming them with soft golden hands. The air felt different now, like something invisible was wrapping the whole room in comfort. Rami walked ahead of the others. His face no longer held fear. Instead, it carried something new, something warm, like a man who had finally found a window after living in a dark room for years. Farhad and the others followed behind him, their steps shaky, their eyes wide with uncertainty. The pastor stepped forward, hands open. You are welcome here, he said softly. All of you. Farhad stopped. He looked at the people, families, elders, children, people he once believed were his enemies. Seeing them now, standing close together with gentle eyes, made something inside him crumble. He lowered his head, unable to speak. Rami cleared his throat, his voice trembling with emotion. These men, they came because of fear. I came because of fear too. But tonight, fear met something greater. The pastor nodded. Tonight, fear met love. Murmurs filled the room. Not judgment, not anger, only relief, wonder, and a strange new hope replacing the fear that once lived there. Miriam stepped forward again, small, brave, glowing with innocence. She looked up at the men with her soft eyes. Are you angry? She asked quietly. Farhad shook his head. No, not anymore. Are you safe? Miriam asked. He nodded again, this time slower, as if the truth was sinking deep into him. Yes, I think I am. The small girl smiled, and something inside Farhad cracked open further. He felt tears rise, unexpected, unwelcome, but real. He blinked them away quickly, ashamed. But the pastor placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Tears are not weakness, he said. Sometimes they are the first sound of healing. Farhad's lips trembled. I have never been welcomed anywhere like this, he whispered. Not even in my own home. The words shocked the room. A few people covered their mouths. Others looked down with sympathy. Rami placed a hand on Farhad's arm. You do not have to be alone anymore, he said softly. Suddenly, a woman from the back stepped forward. She was elderly, with silver hair tucked under a scarf. She looked fragile, but her eyes held strength like calm water under moonlight. She walked up to the men and spoke softly. Tonight, none of us escaped danger by our own strength. Something greater protected us. Maybe he protected you too. Farhad opened his mouth, but no words came. His throat tightened. The woman reached out and gently held his hand. Her touch was light, like a feather brushing a broken branch. Farhad squeezed her hand back. I am sorry, he whispered, his voice cracking. I am sorry for coming here with anger. I am sorry for the fire. I am sorry for everything. The church didn't shout at him. No one pushed him away. Instead, the silence welcomed him. The silence forgave him. The silence understood. Then, the pastor spoke softly. This place is not only for those who believe. It is also for those who are searching. Farhad felt something warm bloom in his chest. Shy, unsure, but alive. Rami stepped toward the center of the church. Pastor, he said, I want to know more about Jesus. The one who saved us tonight. The one who saved them, and maybe saved me. Farhad and the other two men lifted their heads. They exchanged glances, fearful, uncertain, but strangely hopeful. We want to listen too, Farhad said quietly. The pastor took a deep breath, humbled, moved, overwhelmed. Then sit, he said gently. Rest. Let peace speak to your hearts. The four men sat in the front row. The Christians sat behind them. No separation, no lines, just people, Human beings, brought together by something mysterious and bigger than all of them combined. The pastor began to speak, not loudly, not with pride, but with tenderness. He told them about love that forgives, about peace that doesn't force itself, about hope that enters burning nights and turns them into mornings. As he spoke, the room felt full of calm, full of truth, full of something sacred. Miriam listened with wide eyes. As she watched the men, she felt a gentle whisper inside again, soft, peaceful, comforting. It felt like the same voice she had felt before the fire stopped. A voice that said, "Light wins. Always." Suddenly, a soft breeze passed through the room, though no windows were open. Candles flickered but did not go out. The people felt it, everyone. A presence gentle and strong, like the quiet footsteps of an unseen friend. Farhad placed his hand over his heart. "I feel," he whispered, "I don't know how to explain it. Like warmth. Like someone is near." Rami nodded, eyes shining with tears. "I feel it too." The pastor closed his eyes and whispered, "Peace is here." Slowly, one by one, the people in the church began to pray, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Their voices rose together, soft and gentle, weaving through the room like a warm blanket being laid over the night. Farhad bowed his head. The other two men did too. Rami clasped his hands tightly, trembling. The prayer washed over them, kind, welcoming, healing. Outside, the sky began to change. The dark night slowly softened into the first whisper of dawn. The blue of early morning touched the roofs. Birds began to sing, tiny voices breaking through the silence with hope. Miriam looked back at the door, at the fading night, at the soft light coming in. She smiled and whispered, "Thank you." Inside the church, enemies had become listeners. Fear had become understanding, and a night of danger had become a night of peace. The miracle was not the fire stopping. The miracle was hearts changing. And dawn rose over Iran with a gentle promise. Light will always return, love will always win, and hope will always find a way. Summary: in a quiet town in Iran, a small church full of families was attacked at night. A fire was thrown at the building, but something impossible happened. The flames stopped and could not burn the church. Everyone inside felt a peaceful presence that protected them. One of the attackers, Rami, entered the church and discovered kindness instead of anger. Soon, the other men joined him. They were welcomed, forgiven, and deeply touched by the love and peace they found there. In the end, the real miracle wasn't only the fire stopping, it was the change that happened inside their hearts. Enemies became listeners, fear became peace, and hope rose like morning light. Moral lesson: love is stronger than fear. Kindness can soften even the hardest heart. Forgiveness can turn enemies into friends. And when people choose peace over anger, miracles happen, inside us and around us. The greatest power in the world is not fire or force, but love that never gives up. The end.